So now that our wig prep is done, our wig cap is securely on, we are ready to put on our wig. So I'm going to show you just like a quick application of both a lace front wig and also of a hard front. So the lace front wig was not made for me. It is a wig that I actually like added a totally new front on, but I also had to do a lot of like alterations on the wig on the inside just because the wig did not fit the actress at all that I was doing it for. So there was like a lot of elastic. The front on it is actually like this tiny like mini front that I did because it was for a summer stock show and I just didn't have a lot of time. So it does not fit my head at all. So it won't be like the best example of like how a lace front should work, but just so you can kind of see the difference between a lace front wig and a hard front wig going on. So let's just do the lace front one first. So when you're putting them on, you want to make sure that you're really, really careful with the lace. So this is our lovely lace front that we're going to put on. Again, this was fronted and completely like altered on the inside for someone's head. That was not mine. So this is not my perfect fit, but just so you can see the lace front. So again, so when I'm talking about a lace front, I just mean that part in the front. I added all of that in so that the hairline could be more natural for her. So if you have someone that you are like helping put this on, again, if they do like the little fingers, they can grab it and then they can kind of like hold down the top of the lace. If you were putting it on yourself, the only thing I ask is like just don't flip like your head upside down, like don't flip the wig upside down. Try to load it from like the front. So usually if you like overshoot the front of it and pull it down a little farther than you need, then you can kind of like pull the back down a little and like start adjusting it from there. So I'm gonna do my best to put this on myself, and then we can all enjoy the horror that is this wig on my head. So again, so I'm trying to be as gentle as possible. This one is not all lace on the front, so I have a little bit more place to grab it. Like I actually still have like the nice little like ear hook thing, like little ear patches that I can hold to put it on, but not every lace front's gonna be like this. Like I said, this is like a weird one that I completely altered for somebody. So I'm gonna try to kind of like pop this on. Again, putting these on yourself is not like the most graceful thing in the world. And especially putting them on in front of a camera, but I'm gonna do my best to do this the right way. As long as you know, like if you were working on somebody else, like you would be putting it like from the front and like loading it back like that. On myself, I'm gonna try to do this as like gently as possible. Again, this does not fit my head. It's not made for me. This is quite beautiful wig. It was a wig that I also had to add a lot of gray hair into, so it is not exactly my dream hairstyle. Don't mind me as I get very close to the camera here. And again, this one doesn't have a ton of lace, so it's not as like fragile as some lace fronts are, but it is one that you know you need to be careful of. And generally this wig too, I didn't redo it just for this, but it's like a finger wave. Usually it's like a finger wave bob, because it has a lot of crazy places that it has to hide things. So obviously this is not my perfect hairstyle or ever, yeah, whatever. I just never look like this in my life, but you can see I do kind of have like a like front, it's not like, it's like a slightly off center part, but I do have like this tiny little hairline, and that when this actress wore it, that was like centered on her head. So on me, it's a little more than a little off. It's quite off, but you can kind of see that that's how it would look. So on her, this is horrific. Also like the funniest thing in the entire world, because this does not fit my head at all. This is wonderful. But you can see, so it's kind of at a point where it's about as correct as this can probably get for me. Obviously, if you are doing a wig for someone, you should make sure that it actually like looks right on them, whatever like the style is. But this is really the only lace front wig that I have, so this is what we're learning with. It's about me and like 40 years, I don't know. Just a preview of the future. So the first thing that you would want to do is we really want to get like the front of it adjusted. I think this is probably as good as I can get, because I would say that's kind of like where my center of my hairline is. So again, this was made for one very specific person and I am not her, but we're trying. So you would want to make sure that like everything is kind of pinned down. So I want to say one place that's really good to start with is if you kind of pin in the center of your wig. So I can tell, like, I feel like that pin just like scraped my scalp, but usually that's what a lot of people want. So you want to be like careful and you don't want it to like hurt people, but like they need to like feel it on their head. So like, no, you don't necessarily want them to be like, you just scraped my head off. But they do need to feel it and like know that it is actually going through. Like you have to go through the wig, you have to go through the wig prep, the wig cap, everything. So it needs to be hooked in. And that's why like I really do like to use these like sharper pins. So these ones are a little bit too light for this wig, but they are what I have on hand in my beautiful at-home wig studio. So that is what we're gonna use. And then I know it's a little hard to show, but you kind of have to like put the pin through and then you like scoop it up. And then you have to go like into, I can't even imagine the faces I'm making when I just did that. If nothing else, even if you're not learning, this is just a good entertainment to probably feel better about your own choices that you've made in your life, because at least it's not this. But no, you should be able to like feel it. Again, like they should feel it when you're putting it in, but it shouldn't be like super painful, and it shouldn't be painful at all really, but there's a lot of people that are going to tell you like, oh, like I can't feel anything, like just you can be totally rough. I'm still trying to be like, even when I'm working with people like that, I still try to be like as gentle as possible, because like you really don't want to like hurt someone's head, and especially like these really are like sharp, so you want to make sure that you are careful with these. And again, I'm gonna pin through the wig, and again, this thing it's pretty big on me, on the sides. And two, you never want to like pin somebody's ear, so a lot of times like I try to hold it just so I know, like I would rather a pin hit my skin and scrape my hand than like actually hurt somebody. So if you can get your hand under it too in some of the trickier places, that is always a good thing to do. So at this point it would be when you kind of wanted to glue your lace down. So this is a pretty small lace front. If I was going to be wearing it on stage, I would personally have to glue it down just because it's too big for me. But you can see as soon as I do kind of like pull it down, other than the fact that the color is completely not what my hair looks like. It looks pretty natural though. All things considered, it looks pretty natural. So that's kind of the benefit of having a lace front and like gluing it down. If I didn't, you would definitely be able to see like this weird little like flap of lace. I'm pretty sure I was having a hard time like remembering when I was trying to think of this. I don't think the actress glued it down, but again, like this was completely customized like to her head, and we have very different head shapes and head sizes, so this fit on her without it like flying around. But if this was on me, I would definitely want to glue it down. So if I was going to glue it down, I'm not allergic to spirit gum, so I would use a spirit gum to do it. One of the best ones to use for lace fronts is Krylon's Mastix P. That one is really strong. Some people don't like it because it's so strong. So you could use a regular spirit gum. The most important thing to remember is that we are like never putting a spirit gum like through the lace or on the lace. It always goes on somebody's skin. And then once it's tacky, then we're gonna press it down. Mastix P works a little bit differently, and I feel like it almost has to get pressed down like instantly because it doesn't have like the same tackiness that I've noticed with regular spirit gum. But you want to make sure that if you're gonna glue it down or do anything like that, just never get the adhesive on the lace. Technically, if you're using like silicone adhesive or Pros-Aide, you can, but I still really try not to with lace. Like prosthetics, I think it's important for it to be on both sides of it, on your skin and like on the appliance, right? But I think when you're working with lace, it's so fragile that you really want to avoid doing that if possible. So I try to avoid it, and then just remember with those, both silicone adhesive and Pros-Aide, they both actually have to like dry before you can actually press anything down, just because they work once they are dry. So most Pros-Aides that you're going to find are going to be like dry but like a little bit tacky, and then silicone adhesive, from my experience with it, it's mostly just like dry, so they're not going to have like the same tackiness that you're looking for in spirit gum, so you do have to give them a second to kind of like set up before they are ready to use. And then make sure too, if you are going to glue your lace front, always clean it if you can. Not if you can, when you can, because you will. And even if you feel like you can't, at least like take alcohol to it. Every theater should at least have like some kind of alcohol or something, just like rubbing alcohol to take to it, just because even if you're not gluing it down, you want to get any makeup or anything off too. So just make sure that we're cleaning it every single night, which we've discussed too, like how to do that. You're just gonna like hold a towel under it and use like a brush, and like I prefer 99% alcohol. You could use acetone or a lace cleaner, and just kind of like press the bristles into it, and that's gonna help like dissolve the glue, and then that's just gonna help it adhere a lot better, because if it's not adhering properly, chances are you might have things that are built up on it, and that could just be makeup too. So you want to make sure you're wiping that off. Sometimes, like, I'm lucky, like this lace is pretty close to my skin tone, but if the lace isn't close to skin tone, and you aren't able to dye it beforehand, sometimes people will just take foundation over it. I think that works okay in larger theaters. If it's for something that's going to be up close, I really do feel like you need to dye it, because sometimes I find that like the lace just looks more noticeable when you put makeup on it. I've used alcohol paints on it. If you're going to do that, I would do that beforehand. And I wouldn't do that on somebody's head, just because I don't want to get alcohol, like 99% alcohol, all over somebody's head if I can help it. But just know that once you go back and clean it, it's going to take that paint back off. So that might be something that you have to do multiple times. So yeah, so we'll pretend that I glued this down. I'm not going to do it for now because it's only going to be on for like 2 seconds. But I would want to do that, and I'd want to like firmly press it down. And then honestly, the more I wear it, the more I'm like, this is normal and I look fabulous, right? So once I kind of have my whole front, that's when you can kind of work on like getting the back of it to fit. I find a lot of times with wigs, the back of them, you end up really having to like adjust a lot, because a lot of times like we have like baby hairs, or like they just don't fit all the way, or like the style is like more of an updo, so you can see somebody's like actual hair or something, so they take a little bit more adjustment. But I usually use like smaller pins up in the front, but I prefer to use like larger ones in the back, and then sometimes too there's pins that are even larger than this, that I can grab those for the next one, that are either called like opera pins or like escape pins sometimes, and you can like bend them. So if you do have to get somebody out of something really quickly, you can just kind of like find that in the wig and just like pull it back out really quickly. But again, we can just do the same thing, where I scoop under the wig and into the wig prep and through the wig cap. And that's one thing I think that people just kind of like really like loosely pin wigs sometimes, but it really does need to go through everything. Otherwise, it's really not going to stay on. Okay. And then again, if you can find pins that are closer to the wig color, that's always going to be better for you. But since I'm not actually, unfortunately, since I'm not going anywhere in this wonderful look, I'm not super worried about that. So at this point, if you think you can fix it to make it better, you can try, but there's not much you can do in some situations, right? But hopefully before this point you have tried it on so that it doesn't look like this. Or you're wearing a wig. This is a good lesson on the importance of wigs that fit, and how important it is that the lace front actually fits the human, and the wig actually fits the human that it is going on. So once you've worn it, you've done your show, it's time to take it off. A lot of people just kind of like rip stuff off. That is like the worst thing that you can do, especially like for lace fronts. So really it's important, take the time to take all your pins out if you're having a hard time. If you use like one of these pins, the little like U-shaped wig pins, you can just like pop the other pins out and use it to find those. Use the smaller ones for the front. It's going to make your life a lot easier. So you can just go through, and since I just pinned it, I know exactly where the pins are. But if you ever don't know, you can just go ahead and like scoop it out with these. It makes life so much easier. And especially too where some people, like, because you really want to have somebody like shake their head around and stuff and make sure that it's not going to move. This one's not too horrible, but probably if I was going on, I'd have to do more like in the top of it. Those can be really hard to find, so I really recommend using one of these to help you kind of like fish it back out. And I like to take the pins out of the back first, and then I work my way towards the front, so that way like I don't release the front and it's not just like hanging back, because you really want to do everything you can to protect your lace. Okay. And so you kind of take your pins out the opposite way that you put them in, essentially. And again, you're not always going to have like a mirror or something to like look in when you do this. So that's why it can be a good idea to like have these little things. If you're working backstage, hopefully you have some kind of like a little light if you need it to help you find them, because you're probably going to have quick changes where you have to pull pins out really quickly. And if that's the case, I don't recommend using the small ones. Even though I think that smaller pins are sometimes easier to pin wigs on with, they can make it really hard to get them back out, especially if like whichever pins I put, like I was saying before, like into like the top of the wig, these ones are extremely difficult to find sometimes, especially when you're like literally looking at nothing trying to find it. But that one might be. Sometimes too, and it's really bad to do this, but sometimes you have to start like popping it off, so you can see, try to remember where exactly you put it. That's not the ideal way, the way I just crunched up that lace, but sometimes you will be in situations where that's what you kind of have to do to find it, because you've pinned it too well and you can't get it back out. And so if that's the case, just try really hard not to touch the lace when you do it. I'm not too worried because I did this lace and it's my work, so the only person that I am hurting with this is me. But really it's not ideal to pull the pin out after you remove the wig, but sometimes they just get stuck in there and you can't find them, so just try to be as gentle as you can. So this one doesn't have a ton of lace, so it can't really get that hurt, but it's a good idea to be as gentle as possible. And then you want to put it back on the block. You would want to reblock that if it's the end of the night, just because if you're trying to touch it up and the front of it isn't blocked, then you're not going to be protecting the lace or anything. We'll talk more about like blocking and everything when we get into styling wigs, but you just want to make sure that you put it back where it's supposed to. A lot of people, I feel like mix up like wig blocks and things. Like I think it's great to label them, and if you have like a ton for a show, like I just worked on a show and we had them like stored in specific places so that they always made it back to where they're supposed to. You're just helping yourself out and making life a little bit easier that way. So do your best to put everything back in the same place. It's a lot harder, I think, to lose like a wig than like facial hair pieces, but just make sure that you're being careful, and that you're not losing them. So really quick, I'll show you. It's really not that different of a process, but I will show you what putting like a hard front wig would look like. So the one that I have is a great kind of sort of, I feel like it's sort of like a soccer mom haircut. It's honestly kind of what my hair looked like in high school. So again, so this one is hard front, and just to kind of like review what that is, hard front just means that like the front of it is like, it's just ugly. So like when there's bangs, it's not a big deal. But if that was like pulled back, like the whole world would know that you were wearing a wig. So this one, because it's not actually like anything, it's just like bangs, wouldn't be like the end of the world. If it like got a little bit messed up, or if I saw somebody flip this upside down, but it's still not ideal. Oh good. I've put this one on at least before, so I kind of know what this looks like on me, but this is still hilarious. Okay, so again, I'm gonna, oh my gosh, so that's so scary. Welcome to what I looked like when I was 17. Right down to like the weird like under hair color here. That's sort of like hiding. Oh my gosh, this is so funny. Wow, my hair used to be this color all the time, y'all. This is too funny. Okay, so you want to do the same thing you did before. You want to adjust the front of it, but since it's not a lace front, we don't have to do as much, because we would never have to like, I feel like I should be in like an 80s hairband. I have like a mullet. You don't have to do as much to like glue down any lace. And then you can just kind of worry about like it's like you try to move it around and like make it better, but there's really no way to make this wig better, I think. But then you would just go through and you'd pin it the same way. So I would go in, for these, I don't know, depending on how it fits on somebody. This one is pretty tight on me, so I don't know if I would necessarily need one like right in the front of it. And this is also one of the ones that has like the really awful like plastic tops in it. So with those, it's really hard to pin through. I have done it before, and I'm telling you, the only pins you can use are like these really little like sharp ones that don't have any of like the little plastic like balls on the end of them. Those are the only things that will go through stuff like that. But otherwise, I would just put my pins in here, put them in the back, and really quick, let me just show you. I probably won't pin this one down because we pinned down the other one and saw how that went, but just what I was kind of talking about with like the upper pins that you can use as kind of like escape pins, so they bend kind of nicely. And basically what people will do, this is harder to do if people are up close because you can kind of see it, but people will even like, they'll bend them this much. Like I've seen people do that just so that they can like yank it back out. That works really well like in opera where like the stage is huge, but even just having pins this large, that makes it a lot easier for you to see. And then I've worked at places where they put like little beads on the end of them just so that you can find it. And it's nice too if you use these as like hair decor and they have like little like decorative beads and stuff. It makes it really easy to go back and find it. So things like this can definitely be your friend. Wigs like this are probably not your friend. Wow, this is so scary. This is terrifying. But again, and when I take this one off, I'm going to take it off. I would take out all my pins, and then I would gently kind of like pull it back off my head, and then put it back on our block. and then you'd be able to go in and like remove all your wig prep, and you would be good to go. And when you're doing this, we only use bobby pins, so it's not as hard to take it off, but again, you would want to use like your hairpins if you have like tiny little pins everywhere. Please wash your wig caps. People don't wash their wig caps. You can always put them in with your laundry bags. They'll tell you if you can't, but I don't know why you wouldn't be able to. So please do it, because you have to think like every time you wear a wig, you're sweating, and your sweat is going to like go into that, and it's just going to be hanging out in it. And really no amount of alcohol is really going to cut through your sweat the way that just like washing it would be. So please wash your wig caps. If they get holes in them, you need to tell someone so that they can replace it, because it's not going to be any good if all of your like wig prep is just coming out of it. So hopefully that kind of helps make wig application make a little bit more sense, or hopefully you at least got a good laugh out of it, if nothing else. And yes, that is basic wig application.